Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I want to answer a very controversial and inflammatory question that I get quite often. And that question is, why are so many right-wing gun owners so prone to violence? Why do they think this is a way to further their cause or to promote their agenda or win support? And the answer to this question is surprisingly simple. It's really easy if you think about it. The answer is they're not. This is all a creation of the media, that somehow white gun owners are the most violent and dangerous group you could ever face. It's just not true. When it comes to violence, the extremes do tend to be violent. If you're extreme right-wing or extreme left-wing, your chances of being a violent person are a lot higher than if you're someone who isn't in the extreme. It's just the reality. But we live in a country where right now there is a war on guns. There's a war on an armed population. They don't want that. And you might say, well, why don't they want that? Well, it's because it's a threat to the status quo. A capable armed populace is a threat to two groups of people, especially oligarchs and politicians. The billionaires that run this country and their pet politicians who promote their agenda just so that they can share in the lifestyle, they are threatened by an armed population. So there is a war on guns. They want everyone disarmed. So they have a reason to present gun ownership in a negative light because they don't want you owning it. And the easiest group to demonize is white gun owners. Now, I'm not saying white gun owners aren't dangerous or can't be dangerous. They can be very dangerous. Radicalized people are dangerous on the right or the left. But if you want to look at like crimes committed with a gun and you take suicide out of the mix, what are most of the crimes? They're gang related. But do you hear the FBI and the CIA saying, gangs are a huge threat to us. It's a huge threat to society, the number one threat. Even though they commit most of the violence, you don't hear that because they're not a threat to the status quo. In fact, they're baked into the status quo. They like poor people killing other poor people and keeping everybody mad at each other, divided. But they don't want an armed population. They don't want white, black, Hispanic, whatever, mainstream people owning guns because that is a threat to the status quo. Because like I said, biggest threat to oligarchs and politicians, an armed population. And when you look at the armed population, white people are the ones that stand out the most. They just happen to have more guns. It's just the way it is in this country. I wish it wasn't. I wish every group of people, black, white, gay, straight, whatever, all owned guns at an equal rate. I would be thrilled as long as that was a high rate. But that's not the way the government wants it. There's a war on guns. They don't want an armed population. So since an armed population is a threat to the status quo and white people with guns are the biggest target and the most visible, they promote that. If a white guy in Alabama killed 3 people and then shot himself, they'd be on the news for a week. They'd have reporters on scene. There'd be helicopters overhead. They'd interview every person that every victim knew their entire life on air. Make a big deal out of it. They portray it as this is going to happen to you. It's as likely to happen to you as it is anything else to happen to you. Not true. You're far more likely to die in a car accident. They ain't going to tell you that. But they'll portray it like this is a huge threat because their whole goal is to demonize gun ownership. The gang people doesn't do them any good to demonize them because they usually get their guns illegally. So how do you pass laws to stop people from illegally owning guns? So that doesn't suit their agenda. Also, gangs don't tend to be politically involved, so they're usually not a threat to the status quo. They're just poor people killing other poor people. Like I said, that's figured in. An armed society, that's what they don't want. That's the whole reason that the media portrays to you that white right-wing gun owners are so dangerous because that tends to be the majority of gun owners. Most gun owners sit a little bit to the center of right wing, to the right of center. And the media wants to shine a spotlight on every one of them that does something wrong. However, some guy can run over 20 people with his car. Some left-wing activist could run over 20 people with his car, kill 10 of them, and it still wouldn't be anywhere near as big a story as that guy that killed 3 people did himself with a gun, especially if he's a white guy. Also, if you have black people commit crimes with guns, the media doesn't go after that as much either, because they don't get that anger from everybody when it's a minority person, because then they think, oh, we're being discriminatory towards the minority, and we're trying to keep them as part of the voting bloc that will say, yeah, we don't need these angry white people having guns, so they don't want to demonize them. It's all part of the war on guns, like I said. And I'm not saying the media's war on guns. I'm saying the government's war on guns, because some people might disagree with me on that. But who owns the media? The same billionaires that own the politicians owns the media, so it's all coming from the top. The shit all rolls downhill. So that's why it seems like there's so many right-wing terrorists. And why the government says, oh, the right-wing terrorists are our greatest threat. That's because it's the greatest threat to the status quo that they enjoy. They're not the most violent group. I guarantee you there's more violence in leftist, younger gang groups than there are from the right-wing militias. It just is the truth. If you think left-wing people aren't violent, go to some of the rallies. I know a lot of people are saying, well, this is just the story being told by some right-winger who doesn't know what the left's even like. That's wrong. I'm a socially liberal, fiscally conservative moderate. So I'm a liberal moderate. I'm not a right-winger, not even close, except for on some fiscal policies and some social policies. But, I'm an average person. I'm not right or left. I'm in the middle on a lot of things. And unlike a lot of other people that are on the far right, especially the talking heads, the people who want to seem like they're the leaders of the movements and stuff, I actually go to both. I go to gun rallies. I go to to my capital to fight for gun rights. But I also go to other things, especially if it's a topic I think is going to be used to divide people. I go there to see the truth so that I can dispel the rumors. Like, oh, this group that's exercising their First Amendment rights, we still shouldn't support them because they're burning down the courthouse. And I'll be there and I'll be like, oh, they're not burning down the courthouse. Where are you getting that from? But still, the people that aren't even there will double down on the lies. I'm someone that goes there. I'm not afraid of being in a situation that might be dangerous to me. If there's an end cause there, if there's actually something to be won, I will put myself at risk. I don't care. I'm not a coward. I'm too stupid to be cowardly. So I go to these things. I see the violence on the left. Hell, I've been the subject of violence on the left before. I've had people attack me at these rallies, call me names. I had some guy slap the phone out of my hand one time as I was filming. They're angry, just like some people on the right are angry. Whether someone's going to be violent, the best indicator is, are they angry? Are they angry and disenfranchised? That happens on both sides of the spectrum. The vast majority of Americans now have been disenfranchised because the people that have everything don't want the people that have nothing to have anything, because that means they give away something. They want to hold everyone down. That makes a lot of people angry. And some people believe, oh, I'm being held down because of the immigrants. That's bullshit. You're being held down because it's financially beneficial to the billionaires. And other people believe I'm being held down because of that right-wing philosophy and everybody's against me because I've got a different skin color, etc., or a different religion, whatever. Not necessarily true. It's likely because for you to have something, someone on top would have to give up something. That's the real reason. I don't know of very many Americans that are actively trying to hold down other Americans, except for those in charge. And like I said, since those in charge are waging a war on guns, and white people with guns tend to be more right-wing, and they're the biggest target for disinformation, that's why you see more examples of it on the news. That's why they cover it, like I said, for days at a time on the news. They don't care how many people died. If you say, 5 people died in this shooting, they'll be there. They'll promote it for days. If over here, 12 people died because some leftists, set a fishing boat on fire. They don't give two craps about that. It doesn't further their agenda. It's all violence. The only difference is the tools. People on the right wing, on the right side, tend to have more guns as their tools. People on the left often have bricks, Molotov cocktails, Bic lighters to set buildings on fire, all kinds of tools. And here's a little secret, a lot of them have illegal guns. A lot of younger gang people who I would never call right wing, I don't know if they're left wing or not, but I'd never call them right wing, they have a lot of illegal guns. And they're committing a lot of violence with them. If you look at gun deaths in this country, it's mostly suicides, then it's gang violence. And then it's just regular crime. Much bigger problem. Bigger problem than white terrorism. As far as to every individual in the United States, you're far more likely to be killed by a criminal with an illegal gun than you are some right of center guy with a gun who is not a criminal. It's just not the bigger threat to you. When they talk about biggest threat, like I said, remember they're talking about the biggest threat to the status quo, which means certain people having all the money, certain people having all the power, the politicians serving those people, and making sure that the population is scared and divided and unable to defend themselves. That's their goal. That's why it appears like there's more right-wing violence, because the media and the government have a vested interest in showing you that, while ignoring all the violence on the left. Remember, all those fleeting things you saw on the news about, 10 people killed, 12 people killed, 7 people killed, people getting run over, burnt alive, whatever, and how little coverage it gets. But then, like I said, someone shoots 3 people and then themselves, you'll hear about it all week, maybe 2. And you'll see people trying to rush through legislation to take away guns. You don't see that every time there's a gang killing, every time there's like 10 people killed in where is it, Chicago or Detroit. You don't see them rushing to, let's make anti-gang bills. No, they don't, because that's not a threat to the status quo. So keep in mind when you're seeing violence, that violence is violence. Sometimes people act on right-wing issues. They might believe in the replacement theory, or they might hate Jews. Although I will say anti-Semitism is now more of a left-wing thing than a right-wing thing, with the AOCs and the Omars and everything. I see more anti-Semitism on the left than I do on the right, by far. But whatever it is, a left or a right cause, I think you're just as likely to see violence. In fact, I think you could easily say there's probably more violence on the far left, because nowadays there's more of them and they don't got jobs. So they got nothing else to do. And they're very angry. Young people these days are very angry. They feel like they're never going to get a piece of the American pie and the American dream, and they're probably not going to. So there's more anger there. So I would say there's more violence there. It's just that when it happens on the right, and when it happens to be white gun owners especially, it's a perfect example to feed the narrative that the government wants to shove down your throat. It's the perfect way to achieve their goal of disarming everyone. So that's why you see a disproportionate coverage of those events. All right, everybody, I've gone over, and that's it for me today. I want to thank everyone for coming. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Until then, I just want to remind everyone to always carry and stay safe until I see you again.